Hello everybody and welcome back to another very exciting video here on my channel. In today's video, as you already know because you clicked on today's video, we are actually moving in and setting up our home library and now office and game room. It's a multifunctional room. Before you and also behind me are my two wooden new bookcases that we just got. My husband's uncle actually made these and I just collected them. So now they are mine. They are homemade. They're pretty decent sized and I'm so excited to try and fill them up and put all of my books that are all on the ground onto them and display them. And for the most part, it's just going to be majority books, not so much decor items. But I'm so excited to finally get into this video. Also, I'm very sorry about the weird lighting that might be hitting right now. You have the sun actually coming through from the only window in this room. And then I took out 2 of the 4 light bulbs. So I only have 2 light bulbs in, but of course it's like a really weird ceiling fan that has like almost droopy flower type lights. I'll show you maybe here in a bit. So I don't really care much for it. Eventually we want to redo this. I want to paint this whole entire room green. We have a lot of plans for it, but for right now it is just move in, get everything set up, etc. Simple things, one step at a time. I already filmed a couple different clips, and the first was actually my husband bringing in one of the bookcases because at the time we only had gotten one of them, and he attached it to the wall. He set it up on this wall over here, and then because we were getting the second one, we decided to move them to the back one. I have not cleaned them off just yet. They're a little bit dusty from moving, especially and being in the trailer, so I will get to that. And then also there's a clip of my husband building this desk. We had a black desk that we've had since like 2019, and that is going to be my husband's gaming desk, and this whole room is a mess, so please, I'm so sorry. It's gonna be so terrible. We will get to it eventually. We'll fix it up. He got me this desk. It's like any level, or I guess it's a stand-up desk, and that way later on when I wanted to, I could get a walking pad and walk underneath it while editing videos, editing photos, or just playing games like The Sims. I'm very excited and I'm very thankful that he actually got me that and he put it together, and I do have a clip of that, so I will insert that right before we actually get into this. If you guys are curious with keeping up with our house updates that will be happening later on in the future, be sure to subscribe and also check out a playlist I created specifically for this new home. This is supposed to be our forever home. We don't have any more plans. We are done with active duty military, so we are physically staying in Kentucky. This is where we hope to live forever, and yeah, we have a lot of upcoming things to change about the home to make it more personalized to us and make it feel more like our home that we created and not just a home that we bought, that we moved into. I think the saying is making a house a home. That's a saying. So if you're curious, go ahead and subscribe and then keep up with that playlist. I already have one video as I'm standing here right now already in that playlist. It is the empty house tour. If you're curious, you can go check that out after this video. Without further ado, let's go ahead and get into the most exciting part, filling up my bookcases. I want to update y'all on the library because for once we just started actually working on it. I filmed one clip because my husband set up one of the bookcases actually on this wall, which I'll show you in a moment. We decided to move it and he was trying to repurpose this shelf. Owners of the house made this. It wasn't necessarily the sturdiest, and originally I did think that maybe I could use it for my camera stuff, have like a little photography shelf. That's not working out. So we moved my bookcase from this wall to the back wall, and that is actually because we got the second one and we added them to this wall, which is pretty much a halfway point, put them in the studs. He's going to get a wall anchor for the other one. Normally I don't care about anchoring them, but because we're on carpet and I know there's just so many books that I have, I'd rather be anchored this one time. So we also have a little desk set up that I want to show y'all, and then my job right now is to kind of go through my books and just set them on my shelves. Not necessarily organized. I just want to set some stuff out, get rid of some boxes, clean up the floor. So we have on this wall where the bookcase used to be Josh's desk. This will be his desk since we're making this more of like the library game room. This is what we had from the apartment and also our house. And then like I said, our bookcases, my bookcases. And then Josh, he built me this, and I'm just gonna steal a kitchen chair for now. Eventually we'll get another one, but it's not that big of a deal. Eventually I'll also get a walking pad so I can do more walking while I play games or edit videos or do something. And then we're keeping this whiteboard. This might be our little spot to plan out videos or do something together. And then this is the mess that we still have to go through. So a lot of this is books. Like this is all definitely books. We have some random camera, scrapbook, just random stuff. And we also have some decor items, our printer, which I don't know if the printer might just sit on the side here or if the tower will sit there, and then the actual printer maybe over here. I have no clue where everything's gonna sit. But yeah, we just have a few items. We also have some pictures that we might hang up in here. And then I found this one at a Goodwill, so we might hang up some of this. All right, so here are the empty bookcases. I love them. They're wood. I love the stain of them. We also have this photo, and then also this one that I thrifted out in Las Vegas when we were stationed out there. Thrifted those at a Goodwill for a couple bucks each. Those are just hanging because we tore down a couple different shelves that they had, and ironically the whole room was purple, but they painted around everything. Like I said, this is a work in progress, but we're sticking with it because right now it's functional, it's moving ready. I do have a couple items that I want to potentially decorate. I don't have much, but I like more books on bookshelves than decor. So I have this photo master guide, and this is from Kodak, and this is an older to kind of help with like the light and the lighting, everything like that for photography, since this was originally going to be the library and then my office in particular, and then my husband wanted to join me and I was more than happy with that. So it is now a game room office library, and I have this. Then ironically I have this pyramid, and they had a little display cabinet in the hallway in between the office and the laundry room, and they had this exact pyramid. So this house has this exact same one because my eye caught it because I thought instantly of mine, and I used to collect these types of things because I loved Egyptology and stuff, and I figured close to my Egypt books I would decorate with this. Then in this little cross case we actually have my grandfather's blessed cross that was blessed right before he died, and in 2020 my sister's house, or my grandma's house technically, but my sister lived there, her house burnt down, and this was in the kitchen, and everything disintegrated that was wood pretty much, and the glass, everything was so hot that the glass even rounded, but somehow this blessed little wooden cross made it alive. I think it was cherry wood if I remember correctly. So I keep that in there also because I cannot stand the smell anymore. It does something with me. If you've ever been through a house fire, you might understand the smell. I do have that, and I love to decorate with that. It's just something that is kind of sentimental to me. And then of course I have my TBR jar with all my prompts in there. And lastly, I do have this photo Abby sent me when we were in Las Vegas, and I don't know exactly how I want to decorate fully with it, but I think eventually once we get a feel and redo some of the rooms, I might have a more of an understanding of where to go. All right, so on to the books. We have a lot of books. We have close to 300 books sitting down here. Just, it's a mess. It's honestly just a total mess. But I did kind of try and section some of them together. Like we have a series or authors, or I don't know, more series, more randoms. To a point I didn't try and do genre 100%, but I also kind of tried to keep my standalones or random books. And then like over here was more of the Christian military memoirs, little kid books that I used to have, and then it kind of was like the Bibles and coffee table books and just random stuff like my older books. I don't know, I was just making multiple different stacks, and I think I kind of organized them enough that I have an understanding of where they might go on the bookshelves. All right, on my bookshelves, I'm sorry about the sun, this is so annoying. Maybe I'll put up the curtain. Let me put up the curtain real quick. Much better. It is a lot darker, but one thing I want to talk about with my shelves is how I organize. I know a lot of people display their books using like a color system where they want to do it in a whole rainbow, or some people just throw it on randomly. I don't know. I know some people genre code it, which I do in theory. I have it, I think, planned out in my head where I want to do it for the most part by genre, but in each shelf, no matter what, it has to go by author and it has to go by size within that author and potentially also color if it's not like in a series. I always go by size, color, and also trying to keep it by genre or by author. For the most part, some things are probably not going to fit exactly how I want them, so I might move them around, but I hope you'll understand because at the end of this video, I will also be doing a entire in-depth walkthrough of my bookshelves, or in-depth tour, I guess is what it's called. And also I have a lot of Nancy Drew and Hardy Boys, so I'm not 100% positive if I want to put them up here on the very top of the bookcases or maybe on the bottom shelf. I don't know, maybe I'll just try some things around. I guess I'm just procrastinating because I know this is going to be a long time putting these up. What am I doing? I haven't cleaned them yet. As much as I would love to clean the top, I kind of already did a little bit, not necessarily fully, but that's just because when we were moving them in, we kind of brushed along the top. So they're dusted. If you know me, you know I dust like once a week. Now that we finally dusted, and for the sake of this right now, I think I'm just gonna take some series or some authors and just place on certain shelves that I think I want them to be at. I'm also trying to think of if I'm sitting at the desk filming like a YouTube video or even another book video, what do I want relatively on these two shelves, or I guess these 4 shelves, because this is mainly what's going to be noticed. Maybe if I'm sitting there, you might get a little bit of the top, maybe a little bit of the bottom, or like the second from the bottom, but these 4 are going to be the main ones when filming, so I want to kind of think of more of the books that I like to display in general, the ones that I think are so pretty or I just love the stories, maybe on these because you're gonna see them first, and then these ones be like ones that I'm happy about or I like the covers but they're just not my all-time faves. So most likely this will be the fantasy side, this will be the romance side. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 8, 9, 10. Trying to keep them in order. All of my Nancy Drews fit, which is great, but at the same time I have just a little bit less of Hardy Boys, and normally if I'm gonna put books with Hardy Boys or Nancy Drew, it's my older style books, like my 50, 100 plus year old books, and I don't think I really want those because I know they won't all fit. I think those will take up a whole shelf by themselves. All right, let's go with idea 2. So if we put all of these on the top, what about, can this fit here? It can. It's not going to necessarily stay. What about, where's the middle? Does that look good? Oh, you can't even see. Can you see now? Does that look good? You know what? I think I kind of like it because of the 2 photos on the end. And then maybe what we can do is put Nancy Drew, maybe put Nancy Drew mystery stories on this side, and then a little bit of Nancy Drew's, like the case files and stuff right here, and then the Hardy Boys on the opposite side as well, and that kind of breaks them up. That might work. I guess we'll start from this side and work our way backwards. Let me get a stool. So far I'm liking this. And by stool, I mean a chair. We put these here. That's all. Is that even? That's not even. Alright. Do we like this? Actually, this is my bookcase. I like it. I think it's pretty centered for the most part. I'm standing a little there. That's more centered. I think it looks good since they all fit almost perfectly up there. We were sticking with the fantasy and romance side. What if we did like favorite or soon to be read, hopefully? Maybe my Harry Potter's up here. I'd want this at the end, and this is taller. It sticks out. Don't have 3, only 1. This stupid book. Also, it matches better because, yeah, we have blue here, and then we go into green, orange, yellow, but then we can go back to blue in the rainbow. Set that there. There's not much space here. We could do... I think I'm just going to change the camera angle, not necessarily talk to y'all, and maybe just have me putting books up, and let me just kind of think about how I want them to be rearranged. Maybe we'll go from there. made it to the easy part because I did the books that I was most excited about. There's a few gaps. Don't worry, I'll fix them. And now I'm to the books, like books that were from my childhood or just random books that, yes, I've either read or I haven't gotten to yet, and I just don't know where to put them because they don't fall into the categories that I've kind of selected a little bit. I'm probably going to do the rest of this off of camera just because I really want to focus on trying to put the books where I think that they might work best, if that makes sense. And also that way I don't have to keep moving the camera, turning it on, then actually putting up the books, and then moving the camera if I move to a different shelf. I know that sounds stupid because I'm doing YouTube. That's what it's here for, but that's okay because don't worry, right after this we have our in-depth bookshelf tour. So
sitting in the basement apartment I rented with you, remembering the holiday party we had with the crew.
I think I finally did it. I'm so excited for this moment. I think I have my entire bookshelves organized exactly how I want for now, at least, because who knows, I might get a couple more books, or I might just look at it one day and be like, I'm not feeling it anymore. Let's rearrange it. This was a little bit challenging because I've never had this big of a bookcase. Usually I had like a TBR bookshelf because I had a 3-tier tiny bookshelf that maybe held about like 60 books or so. And now I have both of these. I filled them up pretty much all the way except for one entire shelf and then a couple spaces throughout. And also I finished right as the sun was setting. So this is perfect time. So let me go ahead and turn y'all around and let me show you my bookcases. Let's go real quick through each shelf of this bookcase, and I'm not necessarily going to do full rapid fire, but I'm going to try not to spend too much time on each and every book. So for the most part with Nancy Drew's, the first 2 books, that red and the purple, they're Nancy Drew collection stories. They have about 3 books in each one of those. And then right next to that we do have a special sleuth book specifically just for Nancy Drew, and of course all of the mystery stories 1 through technically they go to 100, but I obviously don't have all of them, and I also have some new ones that eventually I'll switch out for the old style, but we do have quite a few. Then we have this photo that I talked about that Abby gave me. If you haven't heard of her or even seen her channel, I will have it linked down in the description below. She does thrifting, and also she has, for her YouTube, she does more vlogs and thrift hauls and military cleaning, you know, just a lot of lifestyle type videos. And she actually gave me this photo because when we were out in Las Vegas, she was trying to get it to us before we moved, and it could not fit in a box, and then she finally found a box and shipped it to us, and I was so thankful. Maybe one day I will have it displayed a little bit different when we have the walls color coded the way I want, or maybe just when we remodel certain rooms, maybe I'll move it out to the kitchen. I have no clue where exactly it'll go, but for right now I kind of like it as a divider on top of both my bookcases. And then on my second bookshelf, or the right side, on top we have just the last of the Nancy Drews. First, that little collection before the books laying down are just mystery stories in a way, or extra stories. They're more so from the 90s, and I have collected a few of them, but they're not my main priority to collect. Sometimes if I see them out, I will maybe grab 1 or 2 of them, but otherwise I don't necessarily collect them. And then the ones laying down are actually called case files. That's a whole separate type series, and I pretty much read a lot of those, but at the same time it's kind of like the ones right next to them. I'm not necessarily going to go out and try and find every single one of those. And then of course we have my Hardy Boys, and this as well, just like the Nancy Drew, is 1 to 100. Obviously I don't have 100, I have a lot less, but I only have 1 book that I have yet to switch out, which is very amazing. I love how this looks, not having the newer style. I think it looks so much better. And also that very end book, that really tall book, that is just like the Nancy Drew sleuth book, only this is called the Hardy Boy Detective's Handbook, I do believe. It's basically the equivalent. They did it for both Hardy Boy and Nancy Drew, and I found the older edition for both of them, and I was really happy about that. So now they all match. How about we go down the first bookcase from top to bottom, starting with the first shelf, and then we'll move on to the second bookcase since there's less on that bookcase. So this is going to be my favorite type bookcase. Up here I had no clue what to do. I had a bunch of Harry Potters, and also of course I had the whole Twilight series plus the host from Stephanie Meyer, so I just decided to make it more of a Twilight Harry Potter since they're both fantasy and they're both YA for the most part. Not necessarily coming to age with Twilight, but Harry Potter is a coming to age series. So in order from left to right, we have the host by Stephanie Meyer, Potter, Midnight Sun, which is like Edward's point of view of Twilight. Then we have Twilight, New Moon, Eclipse, the Eclipse novella, Breaking Dawn. And then moving on, we have for Harry Potter, we have this collection. It's kind of like a Hogwarts library, I think is what it says on the book sleeve. It is 3 stories that are throughout Harry Potter that you hear about off and on, that either Harry reads or Hermione, or just in some way or another important to the stories. So we have the first one is Fantastic Beasts and Where to Find Them, Tales of Beetle the Bard, and also Quidditch Through the Ages. I got those years ago from a Scholastic book fair, and I just read them a couple years ago, and they were okay. They were very YA and also kind of like, you don't have to read them. They're more just display books in my opinion, except for the Tales of Beetle the Bard. That would be a good storybook for maybe your kids. But next to that, I am technically missing 2 books out of the Harry Potter series because I had paperback and I went to order them from thrift books, and for some reason I got the wrong size. I think I ordered them wrong technically because they reimbursed me and they told me to keep the books and just donate them. They were very short books, smaller than the Twilight series, and also they were hardcovers without dust jackets. So since they didn't match, I just went ahead and I'm going to go donate them eventually, probably to My Free Little Library, and do a video. Technically, we're missing number 1, which is the Sorcerer's Stone, and then I have number 2, the Chamber of Secrets. I'm missing number 3, the Prisoner of Azkaban, and then I have the Goblet of Fire number 4, the Order of the Phoenix number 5, the Half-Blood Prince number 6, the Deathly Hallows number 7, and my most hated book, Harry Potter and the Cursed Child. I really don't like that, but since it completes the series, I'm just going to have it on there. And then also on this corner, we have a book that's basically like an encyclopedia of creatures or magical words, or even it gives information on like a crystal ball, you know, just random things that are throughout Harry Potter in the world. It's the Sorcerer's Companion. I had a couple versions of this back when half price books was like $3 per book instead of $10 to $20 per book. So I had a few versions, and then when I found this one, since this is a newer, more complete version, I got rid of my old one, and I thought it was really interesting. I might do an overlay so you guys can kind of see the inside of it. All right, right below that we have probably my most favorite shelf on this entire bookcase, and also probably my most read shelf. So if you haven't been to my channel recently, you might not know about the Matt Kruse trilogy by Kenneth Opel. I absolutely love this series. Well, more so Airborne, because I never knew that it was an actual series. So originally in 2019 I read Airborne and I absolutely loved it, and I just reread it. I'm actually on Skybreaker right now, about 100 pages into it, and Airborne I rated 5 stars again. It was amazing. I think on Goodreads I technically had the first time as 3 stars because I wasn't sure what I rated it, but going back and rereading it, I remember so vividly loving this book. It is such a great, almost like YA fantasy, kind of sci-fi in a way. It's so good. I love Kenneth Opel, at least with this series, and I maybe want to read his other ones. So in that trilogy we have Airborne, Skybreaker, and also Star Climber. And since Airborne and Skybreaker were technically the same cover, same spines, but I turned Star Climber around because it was an older edition and I thought it was so pretty, the cover. I actually really love the cover, and the spines don't match. So since it's the oddball out, it gets turned around. I was also trying something new. And then next to that we have another YA sci-fi series by Veronica Roth. She wrote Divergent, if you did not know, and I absolutely love the series as well. This was a little duology called Card the Mark, and then the second one was The Fates Divide. This was my favorite series by her compared to just reading Divergent. And then of course, like I said, we have Divergent. So we have Divergent, Insurgent, Allegiant, and 4. That completes the Veronica Roth section right there, I guess you could say. And then moving on to the next section, we have my Adrena Young or Adrienne Young books, and I have read every single one of these as well. My favorite technical book that I wanted to turn around was actually this first one, which is called Sky in the Deep. It is more of a Norse mythology book. It's more of a standalone in the duology that it has. It's like an interconnected series, I think, where the second one, which is The Girl That the Sea Gave Back, is the same world, just different people for the most part. The first book characters kind of entwine into the second one, but for the most part, it's mainly just 2 separate books that go along together. But Sky in the Deep was definitely my favorite, but since the rest of her books were all black spined, I did turn around The Girl That the Sea Gave Back. I didn't mind it, but this one was definitely one of the lower ones on my list out of all of these books. And then of course we have Fable, Namesake, Saint, The Last Legacy. This is actually the order that I recommend to people if you are wanting to read this series, because Fable and Namesake is very much like a cliffhanger. I always said that she just pretty much wrote the book and then split it down halfway and created 2 books. Technically recommend Saint after Fable and Namesake because it has 2 spoilers, because it's also about Fable's mom and dad, and you'll get 2 spoilers in Fable and Namesake, so I always recommend to read that one after. And then The Last Legacy is pretty much the last because it's same world, completely different people for the most part. I think you have 1 or 2 characters that entwine into it, but overall it's just different people. And then we have a childhood book next to that. This is Darkwood by M.E. Breen. I ended up up getting this book and rereading it as an adult because I never finished it as a kid because I lost the book. And I did love it back then, so I reread it and I still love it. It just has more of that nostalgia feeling for me more than anything. And this book specifically, since I read it at my grandma's, it still smelled like her house because she was a smoker. And since her house burnt down in 2020, it's one of those that I can never get that smell back. So every time I smell something that's very similar, it just brings me back. So it's nostalgia in a very weird, sentimental way. And then next we have House of Salt and Sorrows and also House of Roots and Ruin. These are the only two books on the shelf that I have not read, this duology. I think it's technically either going to be a trilogy or maybe even more. But so far, I only have the first two. I just recently picked both of these up and I'm so excited to read them. I've been eyeing them so much, but I have a really bad habit of trying to read books only when I have a completed series. And next, we have my all-time favorite book of 2023. It is Throne of Betrayal by Brianna Wilson. It is honestly one of the best books I think I've ever read that really gave me a certain feeling of like excitement and really wanting that second book. I haven't felt that in so long. And I actually, for the most part, went to school with Brianna Wilson and she created this book. This is her first published book and it was so good. Honestly, it was 5 stars. Like I said, it was my most favorite book of 2023. She is supposed to be releasing the second book here hopefully very soon. And when she does, I'm going to drop everything. I'm going to reread Throne of Betrayal and then I will go buy that book. It's called Throne of Wings and Ash. It's gonna look so good and I'm so excited to see what happened because she left it on a casual cliffhanger where you kind of get divulged some information and it kind of makes you rethink the entire thing that you just read. And the main character along with the male main character, I love how she wrote it. I love how she plotted it out and I'm so excited to figure out more. So if you haven't heard and if you don't know about this book, go check it out. It's definitely got good reviews. It's very much worth it. In my opinion, it's a unknown 5-star read. And then we have another favorite shelf of mine, but this one I have not read that many of. First, I have my Marissa Meyer books. So we have Renegade, Supernova, Arch Enemy, and then we have the Lunar Chronicles, the only ones that I have at least, because I'm missing, I think, a couple novellas, maybe a couple books. We have Cinder, Crust, and also Winter. I love the Renegades trilogy, and because of that, I really wanted to get into the Lunar Chronicles. I think it's an older series that she wrote before, but I'm very excited to go into it. I've heard such amazing things, and I want to know what everybody thinks about it. Same with Red Rising. I have yet to read that book. I just picked it up not too many months ago. I think we were actually in Las Vegas, so it's been a few months, but I originally wanted to collect the first trilogy section of it because it was like a trilogy and then added onto it. But now looking at it, since I'm trying to stop doing that, I think I'm gonna try and read the first one, and if I want to get the second one, I'll go out and I'll buy the second one. Next, we have a book that you cannot hardly read, but it is also another one of my favorite books. It's a 5-star read for me. It is The Legend of Story County. You could look back at the cover, or at least the edition I have, and you can see everything that went on, like the main events that went on the cover, and the movie I was watching while reading this book was just so amazing. So I recommend that book. Next, we have the Cruel Prince trilogy, which also I've yet to read, but I've been eyeing this so much here lately. I think I'm going to tackle it very soon. We have the Cruel Prince, the Wicked King, and the Queen of Nothing. Then we have the Hunger Games trilogy, and I think maybe I read 1 or 2 of these in school, and I'm also still waiting on that hardcover of the Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes. I have yet to find that. I have looked everywhere and I can only find paperback versions. So eventually when I do get that one, because I know I'm going to read the whole entire Hunger Games and keep that series, but I do want to get to that. And sitting on top, we have that Blessed Cross that I was talking about earlier, and then my TBR jar. It's like the only flat spot that I thought looked good. Then we have Red Queen and Glass Sword. These are the only 2 books of the series that I have, but I've been thinking about starting this soon just to kind of tackle it because I've had Red Queen for a few years now. All the Light We Cannot See was another 5-star book that I just read not too long ago. I think I just read it in 2024. So it's within a year, and because of that book, at the end of it, we had kind of previews of some of Anthony Doerr's other books. So I ended up picking up Cloud Cuckoo Land because I loved the cover and I also loved All the Light We Cannot See. So I'm hoping that that book is going to be either a 4-star or close to a 5-star. And if not, then I'll just cut my losses and be like, okay, I read at least 2 Anthony Doerr books. I'm pretty happy. I'm pretty satisfied. Let's move on to another author. Then we have Legend, Prodigy, and Champion. Technically, there is a 4th book that was added on many years later called Rebel. I was okay with the first trilogy. I enjoyed it. I read this out in Vegas during the summer. I was sitting at the pool, so I got a little bit of good vibes, but it was definitely YA. I think my middle school or maybe even early high school self would have loved this series, but because I was just a little too old for it, I kind of just cut my losses on just the trilogy. Then we have Fourth Wing. As you all know, I'm sure you've already heard or even read. I have not read this book because I was waiting on Iron Flame, but I think I might read it here soon and then go into Iron Flame. It's one of those that I'm kind of intimidated to read it just because what if I don't like it? Recently, I just read The Invisible Life of Addie LaRue, and Absolutely, this was 5 stars. When people said that it was going to be a 5-star read, I kind of was like, I don't necessarily think how you think. It's probably going to be a 3-star for me. When I tell you this was a 5-star read and I kept coming back to it and I just want to think about it all the time and my mind was picturing everything in this book, I mean it. This was one of those books that if I could convince my husband to actually pick up a book and read for fun, it would be one of the top books that I would give him. I don't know. It was just a really good book. So if you have not read it, go pick it up, go read it. I hope you enjoy it as much as everybody else. And then we have the only Ellen Hildebrand book that I will ever be keeping on my shelf. I got rid of finally all of the rest of her books. This was the only one that was also a true 4-star read. It was also my first book from her, which started into me collecting anytime I seen her books in a thrift store. And then when I would get to them, they'd be 2-star, 3-star. Well, the 3 stars actually were like 2 stars. And I just couldn't stand them. It was one of those that because everybody was reading her, I would try and read a book from her, but I just didn't enjoy her as much as everybody else. So I finally cut my losses and I have been so happy to get rid of those books and just have the Hotel Nantucket. This second to last shelf is more so mystery thriller with a little bit of miscellaneous books thrown in here to just help fill up the gaps. First, we have the Millennium series. I do believe it's what it's called. We have The Girl with the Dragon Tattoo, The Girl Who Played with Fire, The Girl Who Kicked the Hornet's Nest, The Girl in the Spider's Web, The Girl Who Takes an Eye for an Eye, and The Girl Who Lived Twice. I do not have that last one, The Girl in the Eagle's Talon. I do believe it's called. It's like purple or blue, but I will not be buying it because I have yet to read the series, and this series, or at least the first book, The Girl with the Dragon Tattoo, has been on my bookshelf for at least 3 or more years. Eventually, I'm gonna have to read it no matter what because I put probably about 6 or so prompts into my TBR jar where it says read the first or the next book in the Millennium series. Like I said, eventually I'm gonna have to pull that prompt and start reading it, and maybe I'll end up loving it. Then we have the only book from Karen M. McManus that I have yet to read but also have kept on my shelf. It is One of Us Is Lying. I got rid of, I think, You'll Be Next. It was like a standalone. For some reason, I'm not feeling excited to read it. I just look at it and I also kind of just want to get rid of it. So either I will end up reading it or I'm just going to get rid of it eventually. I don't know which one will be first. Then we have 2 other thrillers. We have Blood Sisters and The Store by Bentley Little. And then we have another 5-star read. This is kind of like historical fiction, I guess you could say. It is Sarah's Key. Apparently, you guys have told me that there is a movie and I have yet to watch that, but I read this a few years ago. It was one of my 5 stars. I loved it. I loved what it did to me. I think it gave me more emotion because I had just had our son when I read it. For the most part, it was like 6 months after I had our son. So he was relatively young. And I think it just really messed with me in a good way. Well, not in a good way, but it really messed with me for emotion because I don't feel emotion a lot of the time. So sometimes I try and seek out more emotional books to give me more feeling when I read, if that makes sense. Next, we have Where the Crawdads Sing and also The Silent Woods. Both of those I have yet to read. The Silent Woods I just picked up and I'm so excited about this because I seen it on Ashlyn and Ian's channel, and any book that they pretty much recommend, I'm gonna want to go and read it. Next, we have The Woman Outside My Door. I do believe I read this for a Thrillers in a Week video last January, and I enjoyed it. It definitely, looking at my shelf, is one of my lower ones that I enjoyed. Then we have 2 Lucy Foley books, The Paris Apartment and The Guest List. I have not read The Paris Apartment because I just literally bought that, but The Guest List I have read. Then we have The Housemaid, and I did enjoy this book. I want to read more Frida McFadden books, but I will not be continuing this series because I heard that the second book is pretty much like the first book and each book goes downhill because I think there's 3 out in that series now. For my birthday, I also picked up Don't Let Her Stay, and I thought it was the same author as The End of Her, which is the orange book right next to it. That is the only reason I pretty much picked it because The End of Her was one of my top, actually sitting on this shelf, it is my top thriller. It was a high 4 stars. I really enjoyed it for some reason. It just kind of threw me, even though I guessed everything at the same time. I was still surprised, if that makes sense. So I highly recommend that one, and I hope, even though it's not the same author, I hope I enjoy Don't Let Her Stay. Then we have technically a memoir called Breaking the Code, but I like how this book looked on this shelf because it transitioned from The End of Her being orange to A Little Life just a little bit more. Breaking the Code I've had for so many years. It's one of those that I think I was in middle school maybe when I got it, just thrifted it randomly, and I've yet to read it, but for some reason I have never gotten rid of it with all of my book hauls. So I will probably end up reading it hopefully next year. And then, like I said, because I'm looking for a little bit more emotion in books or books to give me more feeling, I picked up A Little Life just to see what it was about because also I was very curious about it. Then we have The Girl on the Train, and I ended up picking this up because I seen this in thrift stores all over the place for so many years, and then I finally caved. I finally bought one and also read it in the beginning of the year for that Thrillers in a Week video, and I also liked it, ironically. Then we have The Midnight Library. I just kind of recently picked this up a couple months ago, but I have not read it yet. The final books on the shelf are my Stephen King books. In the stack, we have the 3 books that my mom actually gave me. These were like extra books that she has, because she has so many first editions. When Stephen King used to have that website where you could get those first edition copies and hardcovers, she gave me Christine, Different Seasons, and Needful Things, and I have read Christine. I have not read the other two on the bottom. Christine is my all-time favorite movie and also one of my favorite books. It is my favorite Stephen King book. Then we have The Stand and another copy of Christine. This is the only duplicate on all of my shelves, and it's only because I love that book so much. I don't necessarily want to get rid of the older style, but also I wanted one that I could read a little bit better and it wasn't necessarily falling apart a little bit. And then The Stand, I just tackled that book last month. That is 1150 pages. All right, I might rapid fire the shelf because this is kind of my coffee table, military, Christian type shelf, I guess you could say. This is the last shelf on this bookcase. The first two coffee table books are actually combat aircrafts. They're F-16 and A-10. Next to that, the blue book that you can't really tell the spine, it is a Titanic coffee book. Then we have 100 Days in Photography. Then both the Founding Fathers and My Country, 'Tis of Thee are two coffee table type books that I picked up because I wanted physical proof, physical copy of our Constitution, multiple other history or facts about our country. So I bought both of those. I really love both of those. They're interactive except for the My Country, 'Tis of Thee. It's just really beautiful, really good information for the most part because it's not fully up to date. It's up to date, I think, in like the 80s maybe. So it's a little bit behind, but honestly, I'm so glad I have those and I don't have to rely on the internet for things. Then next to that, we have a 100 Years of Chevy Trucks. That spiral notebook is actually kind of like a scrapbook, but a notebook style that I made for my husband when he was deployed and he got to have it when he came home. And then we have my astronomy book that I had to buy for school and I kept it. And then another F-16 book. We have a whiskey, bourbon, and rye book. And then we get into the actual books. So we have The Gold of Exodus, which I loved. It was a, I do believe 4, if not 5-star book. It's a Christian book and it is the findings of the true Mount Sinai. I highly recommend it if you're curious. If you also love Christian books, it was very entertaining. Then we have Unbroken. This book was so great as well. I love military style books and I have yet to see the movie, but I hope to see it soon. The Heart and the Fist by Eric Greitens. I love that book as well. The Dale Earnhardt Jr. I actually bought in 2018 or 2019 for my husband, and like I said, he doesn't necessarily read. So he has never read it and I have never read it, but I've been thinking about reading it. Then we have American Sniper by Chris Kyle. I absolutely love this book. It's one of my favorite military style books. Walk on Water. This is actually a devotional from somebody that my husband is related to. Next to that, we have my all-time favorite military book that I've read. It is A Pink Mist. It is also from somebody that my husband's family knows, and I absolutely loved it. I highly recommend it, and I have been thinking about circling back and maybe trying to read it again. Then we have a Christian book by Max Lucado, and it is 6 Hours One Friday. It was more of a devotional type study book. I really enjoyed it. I followed along with it for a little bit, and I recommend that as well. I love the cover of it. It's so beautiful. And then we have A Chicken Soup for the Grieving Soul. We were given this book, or my husband, I guess technically, was given this book back in 2020 when my father-in-law died. I'm not sure if he's ever read it or not. There is a bookmark halfway through it. I have not personally read it, but it's also one of those books that I probably will not read. And then we have a re-illustrated book of the sinking of Titanic. This is actual Titanic eyewitness accounts from 1912. It's just rebound, re-illustrated, but technically it's the exact same book that they posted in 1912. And then the final actual book on the shelf is Richard Hammond's On the Edge. If you know anything about Richard Hammond, then you know probably what this book is about. It's his crash that should have probably killed him and he somehow walked away from, well, not necessarily walked away from because he was in a coma. And I have wanted to circle back and read this memoir so much, and I definitely think it will be the first one that I do circle back and read. And then here in the stack, we do have my Bibles and my husband's military Bible that he got in BMT. We also have my Bible journal underneath that, my Max Lucado's Study Life Lessons Bible, and then just the box for my new Bible that I currently use. That's the She Reads Truth. I ended up picking that up for I think $60 at Half Price Books or Barnes & Nobles, and I actually really enjoy it. It's very interesting, but I bought it more so I can mark in it, unlike with the study Bible. I didn't want to mark in that one. I like how I was supposed to go fast through these shelves so that I wasn't spending 10 or so minutes on each shelf, and so far I have spent about 10 minutes on each shelf. This video is going to be so much fun to edit. All right, we have, starting on our second bookcase, we only have 4 shelves on this bookcase, and the first one is more so older books. I'm not going to go through every single one of these because some of them I can't read from here, and also I don't remember the names of them, but some of them are 50 years old, some of them are 100, and a few of them, just like 1 or 2, are actually over 100 because they were 1920s. So first we have a collection of 5 stories from Agatha Christie, or of Agatha Christie. Then we have an electrical engineering book, The Chronicles of Narnia, another Agatha Christie book, but this was an edition from the 60s that I thought was really pretty. The Story of Saint Michel, The Little Book Room, ooh, The Treasure of Pleasant Valley. I love that. It was like a Western romance type book. It was one of my older ones. And then we have The Black Stallion and Flame, The Egyptian, some stories, like children's stories books. And recently for my birthday, I just picked up The Giver because I read it years ago and I thought it ended weird. And then I realized not too long ago, it was actually part of a series. So I found a book that is actually The Giver Quartet and it has all of the stories in one. So I picked that up, of course. We have The White Witch Doctor, Remember the Alamo. The next 4, I do not remember until we get to the gold yellow book, which is Treasure Island. That book I did read. I have not read the ones in between that and Remember the Alamo. To be honest, I will probably tackle those eventually. Then we have The Hobbit. I have yet to read as well, but I've been looking at that. Little Women, I did tackle a couple years ago. The Bishop's Mantle, an Egyptology book, Understood Betsy, Black Beauty. Right next to that is a skinny burgundy book, and it is Photography Fundamentals or Fundamentals of Photography, something like that. It also came with a DVD. Then we have another Agatha Christie book, but wait, it's next to another Agatha Christie book. Oh, and there's a third Agatha Christie book. That one is the only one I've technically read, and it is And Then There Were None. That's that white one right next to the hieroglyphics book. Then on top, you already see my Kodak photo guide and then my pyramid as well. This shelf is pretty much just my Nicholas Sparks shelf, but at the same time, I've read a lot of this shelf. Honestly, not even 75, probably 90. Going in order from left to right and also from top to bottom for both of those stacks, we have Nicholas Sparks' The Return, Safe Haven, which I have not read that one, Dreamland, Every Breath. Then we have The Last Song that I just picked up and I have yet to read that one as well. The top paperback is The Longest Ride. I'd like to switch that out because that is the movie edition, movie cover, and I want it to match the other ones. Then we have 2x2, The Choice, The Guardian, and See Me. The Guardian and See Me were very, very good in my opinion. The Wedding, The Best of Me, True Believer, and Nights in Rodant. And then we have the first book I ever read from Nicholas Sparks. This is The Lucky One. I love this book. And then we have a 5-star read as The Wish. I just read this not too long ago. Absolutely loved it. The Rescue, A Bend in the Road, and Message in a Bottle. I have yet to read those 3, but I have read At First Sight. Then we have my Beautiful Creatures series. So on top we have Beautiful Creatures, Beautiful Darkness, Beautiful Chaos, and Beautiful Redemption. It's a YA fantasy kind of romance in a way. Then we have To All the Boys I Loved Before series. So To All the Boys I Loved Before, P.S. I Love You, and also Always and Forever, Laura Jean. Next to that series, we do have All the Tea in China. This was a book that I had on my shelf for 6+ years. I couldn't tell you how many years. And for some reason, I just never read it. I pulled a prompt that said the book that's been on your TBR the longest. Ironically, I ended up loving it. And then finally on the shelf, we have Flock. I have yet to read that and I have been looking for the next couple ones. This is technically going to be like a romance shelf for the most part. We have from top to bottom in order. We have Maybe Someday, Maybe Now, Maybe Not, It Starts With Us, It Ends With Us, and of course Verity. Next to that, I have my Lucy Score books. I have yet to read this series. I have read all of the Colleen Hoover books though, which is great. But Lucy Score, I have Forever Never, Things We Never Got Over, Things We Left Behind, and Things We Hide From the Light. Then we have Archer's Voice that I was really excited that I found this book and thrifted, and I have yet to read it. And it's been probably about a year now. Then we have my Emily Henry stack, and I ended up changing this and doing this in the order of which books I like the most. So on top we have People We Meet on Vacation, then Beach Read, Book Lovers, and Happy Place. Next we have the Caraval trilogy. I absolutely love this series. Because of the series, I have been wanting to read more of her books, and Caraval was technically my 5-star read of it, but Legendary is my favorite book out of all of them. It was rated 4.5 stars, and then Finale was 4 stars, but I love the characters more in Legendary. Then I was given A Court of Thorns and Roses. I'm sure you guys need no introduction to the Sarah J. Maas books or series or world. I, however, have never read a single book from her. I have The Unhoneymooners, a book that I got from a My Free Little Library video that I have not actually read, and I think it's a romance, or it's got a subplot at least of romance, so hopefully it fits on the shelf. It is called Ashes and Snow, and apparently it's also a movie, which I have not ever heard of. And then finally we have If He Had Been With Me, and I will definitely read this. I just recently picked this up for my birthday, and I probably will not be reading that white one if I had told her or something like that, because I've heard terrible reviews about that. All right, now we're on to the final shelf of this in-depth book tour, which I'm so excited about. We first have the second book in the Game of Thrones series, or the Fire and Ice series. Next to that, we do have Brysinger. This is technically book 2 in the Aragon series. Actually, it's called the Inheritance Cycle. Aragon is, of course, right next to it, but we have 2 different editions because Aragon was actually my sister's in 06-05 when the book first came out, and Brysinger I just found at a Christian thrift store, and it is a massive, you can see how big it is. I love that size, but I have never seen another book in the series that size. So maybe one day I'll come across it, but otherwise we do have books 1 and 2, and I've thought about reading it and maybe buying the rest of them if I can find the older editions, because I don't care much for the new ones. Then we have from a Scholastic Book Fair, we have The Familiars that I read as a kid. Ender's Game is similar to The Giver, where I read it in middle school. Did not know it was a series, so now I'm going to eventually find the rest of the series and read it. And then we have my Mary Dowling handbooks. So first we have All the Lovely Bad Ones, Closed for the Season, Deep, Dark, and Dangerous, The Old Willis Place, Wait Till Helen Comes, and The Ghost at Crutchfield Hall. Then the last kind of little kid book that we have on my shelf is Beauty by Bill Wallace. This was my absolute favorite book when I was a child, and I say that because to this day I can remember the exact chapter that something happens. It just gave me so much emotion so early in my life that I really enjoyed it. I'm not gonna lie, I loved horse books when I was a kid, and this one was one of my top favorites. I have my Rick Riordan stack. This pretty much just has Percy Jackson on top, all 5 books 1 through 5, and then we have books 1 through 4 instead of 1 through 5 of the Trials of Apollo. I'm missing just one. Then we have the Infernal Devices. So we have Clockwork Angel, Clockwork Prince, and Clockwork Princess. I've yet to read the series, even though my mom got it for me a couple years ago for my birthday. Then we have The Box in the Woods. I thought this was book like 1 or 2 in the Truly Devious series, not knowing it was like 4 or 5, I do believe. Then we have 2 Elsie Dinsmore books. This is Elsie's Endless Wait and Elsie's Impossible Choice. And then we have another author that I really enjoy, really like reading, and I actually read the orange book at the very end. It is called Lone Star Sanctuary. I read that back when I was pregnant in 2021, I do believe, and I enjoyed it so much. It was like Christian Western mystery kind of like thing. There was a little bit of subplot of mystery, I guess, and it was so intriguing. Recently, we just went to St. Vincent, and for $1 for each of these books. So first talking about that trilogy in the middle, we have Tidewater Inn, Rosemary Cottage, and Seagrass Pier. I'm very excited to read those new covers, because apparently they have newer edition covers. Those new covers are really pretty, and I really like the spines of them. I like the people walking or running. And then the first book to that new series is The Lightkeeper's Daughter. And then we have a John Grebe book, the only one that I will ever keep, the only one that's lasted on my shelf. It is, of course, The Fault in Our Stars. It's nostalgic. Everybody loved it. It had the movie. It was pretty good. And then the last 2 books on the shelf are Christian books. We have The Well and The Shack. And The Well is by Mark Hall. And I found this because I was given a CD from Casting Crowns. I think it was called Courageous or Come to the Well. And with that CD, it had like $5 off or so of this book called The Well when you go to Barnes & Nobles. And I loved it. It was very inspiring, and also I highly recommend it if you are Christian. Same with The Shack. The Shack actually kind of opened my eyes a little bit more to God, how he is viewed, and also heaven, and how we are supposed to act and forgive. It's one of those books that kind of messed with me, but also stuck with me to the point of I think about it a lot, especially when I think about heaven. So I definitely highly recommend The Shack if you are a Christian and you're looking for a good Christian book, unless you've already read it, of course. And here's the finished bookcases. I love how this turned out. I think it's gonna be so easy to find everything. I would do the whole library office, but as you can tell, it's kind of a mess. My chair is also missing because I used it. But this is my little setup. This is all books I have to get rid of. This was my thrift books of the Harry Potters, and then I need to put those. Those are my extra prompts. But this is pretty much what I have going on. We also have our board that both Josh and I communicate on, and Josh is all the way over here, but we have not yet set up his desk fully, like cleaned it off, and he's also got his sim and stuff here, but I have a blanket out here, so it's kind of messy. We're working. It's a work in progress, but honestly, I'm just so happy that this is accomplished and that I can cross this one off of our list. Thank you all so much for watching this video. I hope you guys all enjoyed it. This was so much fun, and I've done a few of these types of videos with bookshelf rearranging in the past, but never with something so grand like this. In my opinion, so grand. I know a lot of people have more than just 2 bookshelves. In my opinion, nothing so grand, so special, and so exciting, because of course this is a new house and hopefully our forever house, and it'd be nice to eventually maybe fill this room with books, or if we move downstairs, if we ever have another kid, have a whole library downstairs filled with books. So this is just the start, and I'm so excited. I hope you guys will continue to watch my videos, and I hope you guys will continue to come back and subscribe. If not, no matter what, thank you all so much for watching this video. I hope to see you all in another video, and God bless.